All right. Excellent. So we're working our way still through I Am That by Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj. And last week he was kind of talking about peace of mind because his student who was asking questions was saying he couldn't find peace of mind. And he made a very interesting statement about that. He said that let's see what he say. Examine closely, and you will see that the mind is seething with thoughts. It may go blank occasionally, but it does it for a time and reverts to its usual restlessness. A becalmed mind is not a peaceful mind, right? And so he was talking about how it's just about impossible to have a peaceful mind. He says it's just kind of contraindicative. What we have to do is withdraw from mind into our inborn peace, into our native peace. And he's trying to explain that difference, that contradiction to our student who's asking the questions, and says to him, don't you see it's a contradiction to try and, it's a contradiction. He's not saying this, but our example that we use is to jump into the swimming pool to try and calm it is a contraindication. You can't do that. The very fact that you're in the pool trying to calm it is going to disturb the pool. And with mind, as long as you're identified with mind is going to be restless. Why? Because to identify with mind, you have to plant the two seeds in your mind, me and mine, right? And if you plant those seeds or toss those two coins into the fountain of the mind goes nuts because those are absolutely unfamiliar, uh, uh, disease-oriented thoughts, me and mine. And so the mind just goes nuts and it creates the whole universe to try and preserve your existence in your ignorance, in your world. And that's how ego forms. And so the questioner says, well, yeah, I see the contradiction, but I'm getting some improvement, in my practice. And Maharaj says, the peace you claim to have found inside is very brittle, and any little thing can crack it, right? And so he says, what you call peace is only an absence of disturbance. It is hardly worth the name. The real peace cannot be disturbed. Can you claim a peace of mind that is unassailable? You see, this is the difference of what we find, what we discover in spiritual practice. That's very different from what we find in discovery through the senses. Through the senses, we find nothing stable, nothing unchanging. Everything is constantly in flux, constantly changing form, constantly morphing from one form to the next form. There's no stability there. There's no way to be secure through the senses. No matter how much name, fame, money, or pleasure you are managed to mine out of this world, it will always be a limited quantity and it will always end. But the nature of this spiritual peace, the peace that comes from withdrawing from mind, from learning your real relationship with mind and body, and understanding the nature of what you are, that alone allows you then to create a fulfilling life, knowing that your nature is pure love, pure unselfishness, knowing that your nature is divine, and that there's an infinite wisdom there. Then you know that in order for me to be fulfilled, I just have to live according to that nature. If I live a life that's loving, and I live a life that's based on my inner wisdom, continually growing and blooming, as it were, through our living, you're going to have a fulfilling life. There's no doubt, because it is fulfilling to be what you are. And so that's the big discovery, to find that our nature is love and wisdom. And then the next thing that has to come behind it to really give us our freedom is the knowledge that we are spirit and not material, that we are not the form, or not just one form anyway. Sri Nisargadatta a couple of weeks ago told us, he said, the problem isn't identifying with the body. He says, that's not really a big issue. The problem is that you only identify with one body when you are all bodies. He said, that's the trouble. So we're trying to rise our consciousness above the level of this body, this mind, and to see our oneness, to see that it is that self, that shining, that light of consciousness, that light of Satchitananda, that is what we all have in common. There's only one of those lights, and it's shining in the back of all of our heads into our mind and comes out the front with a name on it. The mind, Swami C, so it comes out the front with a name and a face and a personality and a twisted set of thoughts as it went through the refractions of me and mine in the mind. It comes out the front renamed. And sometimes difficult. And, in saints, it's easy to see that person because that light is very similar coming out the front as it is shining in the back. It's got a nice equanimous tone of love in everyone that it sees, a deep set tolerance based on an unconditioned love, and a wonderful sense of grace. And then just it's moved by wisdom. Nothing is done without a certain amount of settledness, well considered, even though it's happening spontaneously, because it's not happening through the calculations of an ego mind. You're not sitting there thinking, what is my best move at this moment? What should I say that's proper at this moment? How will I look at this point? All those different things that the ego drags in as important. For the saint who's living purely in the moment, there's no thought because there's no time in the moment. The time is that sliver where nothing changes. And to dwell in that moment, everything is spontaneous. Your love is spontaneous, coming directly from what you are. Your wisdom is spontaneous, coming directly from all of the thousands of years of experience that are stored within you, that sit ready for you to use when the mind is silent. Sri Nisargadatta, Eckhart Tolle, Ramakrishna, Ramana Maharshi, they all talk about this infinity of wisdom that doesn't fit into the triads that are necessary for it to be processed in the mind, right? And so this is a totally different understanding. You see, the knowledge that we're accustomed to is knowledge that we collect through the senses, which is always in pieces, because the singularity that we're experiencing gets broken into the five senses, right? And we get that information in the mind, and the mind is taking these five pieces and putting them in the drawers of the mind, as it were. Or I usually see this big rack of shelves, like in a Tibetan monastery, those ancient scrolls, just this giant set of shelves in our mind. And whenever we learn a new fact through the senses, we put it in its proper space in the mind, and then we draw relationships with everything else in the mind in an effort to recreate the singularity that we intuit, that we know. And so the mind's job is to take all this disparate information through the senses, find the relationships together, and put it all in its big shelving unit, tying these relational strings together to try and mimic a unity and an infinity that we intuit, but don't understand because we've identified with something that is not infinite and something that is not immortal. And so we're lost. That's why we get confused about what we are. We're like, we've left what we are, because what we are is an infinite possibility. What we are is an infinite potential, and in every moment that we have, the moment is undefined and utterly free for you. You do not have to continue the actions that you've done in the past. You do not have to stay consistent with your personality. You don't have to do anything. You could get up right now, put on your bathing suit, walk out the front door with a towel, and walk infinitely. You don't have to do anything. You are ever free and ever pure. And if you dare to trust the divine universe in that, you are the universe's child. You are born of this planet. You are out of this body mind of yours, is born as much of this earth as the flowers and the trees. And to feel that family sense in a real way, to know that it's not just, let's pretend everybody's family. Let's pretend everybody's, relationship by calling each other brother and sister and whatnot. It's not just changing the script. It's getting rid of the script and seeing things as they really are. And then you will call each other brother and sister, and then you'll call the flower sweetheart, and you'll bend over to call that dog honey bun, as you scratch him under the ears. And like Hafiz, one of my favorite poems, he scratches that stray dog under under the chin and whispers in its ear as he bends over. He says, "My beloved, I am so happy you have come to see me today." And that is the world of oneness. That is how Advaita manifests, in this world of multiplicity. And the peace and the strength and the equanimity come from pulling our identity out of the changing and into the unchanging absolute, which is in the heart, where Satchitananda is just constantly emanating this energy of pure love, energy of pure wisdom. We put our identity there, knowing that's what we are, and we observe the change, all of the change of the world from our unchanging position, which we do anyway, right? We feel our bodies. That's one of the amazing things about aging, is you're still inside or very much the same person you've ever been. It's like I remember being 7 years old, sitting in the car driving by a cornfield. This just shows you my weird mind, getting excited because I felt like I was on the cusp of puberty and I couldn't wait to get hair under my arms. I can remember being that person. I can remember thinking that and sitting there in the back seat and longing for the day that I would have this body, that I would be grown up, that I would be a man. And here I am, and I'm like, "Oh, kid, you should have thought about what you were looking for." This bargain ain't so great. It's true, I don't have to go to bed when mom tells me, but it's another thing that's an awful lot harder to get up out of bed when I want to. So these things, if you pay attention, then that's why the scriptures are always calling us to this alertness, this observation inside, because you get these lessons all the time, but you don't pay attention to them. You know that you're unchanging. You know that the sense of self that you have within has never undergone a change. Even though the mind has more knowledge, the body has more discipline, the body's older, everything is constantly in flux. You have always known that you were you. And that has been continuous through your whole life. And that is that string that ties all the pearls together into a unity, right? So we know we're unchanging. And we know that we're observing the change, but we never take that into account when we're putting together an understanding of who we are. We still identify ourselves from the outside in, right? And we have to make that switch of starting to identify ourselves from the inside out, right? To define ourselves that way. So our friend says, "Well, I'm striving, I'm trying, I'm doing my work to try and get this peace of mind and this understanding." And Maharaj says, striving too is a form of restlessness, right? This striving, what are you basing it on? Why would he be, challenging this guy's striving? Striving seems to be a good thing. Well, because to strive, you have to make one error. What is that error? That there's something to strive for that you don't have, right? That's the one error. If inside you could silence your mind for a moment, stop listening to what your mind is telling you that you are, and in that silence, just nestle into the inner self, sit for a moment unidentified with all of this constant change, and let that peace come over you. And you'll understand that you are what you are seeking. He says in another place that very important thing. He says, "Do you not understand that it is your quest for happiness itself that is preventing you from being happy?" Why? Because to start a quest for happiness, you have to assume you're unhappy, right? And the problem is if you go looking within for that happiness without doing, just undoing the thought that caused you to feel unhappiness, discerning it, going down to its root and finding out what insubstantial thing have you attached to rely on for your happiness that has changed and left you unhappy. And take that desire and understand, move it off of the changing and stand it on that in you which does not change. Explore that inner world. So striving too is a form of restlessness. The questioner says, well, so what remains? What am I supposed to do, right? Where do I go from here? And Maharaj says, the self does not need to be put to rest. It is peace itself. It is not at peace. You see, this is a very, very interesting distinction here, because we talk about our nature. We as verbs are verbs of love, verbs of wisdom, right? God is the noun. But ultimately, we are that. The changing, the verb aspect gets absorbed into the noun aspect in the end. And we find out that we weren't loving, that we were love itself. And when we got the ego out of the way, that was allowed to express, right? And so that was loving. But I myself was the love that empowered that. I was the absolute unchanging that resonated with the changing to emanate love, to produce a manifestation of love, to produce a manifestation of wisdom, right? But I, the true I, the ultimate I that we realize in the highest realization, that I is the noun. That I is the source of all of this. And it itself does not have a change. That's because it's perfect. It's completely balanced, completely in harmony with itself, completely self-satisfied, requires nothing. So that's why it does not change. It doesn't have a will. It doesn't have a desire. It doesn't have a plan. It's not within time. So it's not experiencing causation. It's not experiencing time. It has no past. It has no future. It's outside of the game. It's completely outside of that game. So the self does not need to be put to rest. It is peace itself, not at peace. Only the mind is restless. All it knows is restlessness, with its many modes and grades. The pleasant are considered superior, and the painful are discounted. What we call progress is merely change over from the unpleasant to the pleasant. But changes by themselves cannot bring us to the changeless. For whatever has a beginning must have an end. The real does not begin. It only reveals itself as beginningless and endless, all-pervading, all-powerful, immovable, prime mover, timelessly changeless. Let's go through. I love it when they give us lists like this. There's always lots of mining that you can do with these lists. So the real does not begin, right? It's because it has always been, and it's outside of the triads, right? What are the triads? The triads that mind imposes on everything. There's 3 triads, very convenient for memory, right? There's time, space, causation. That's one triad that belongs to the mind. The mind imposes time, space, causation on everything, on all the information the senses give it. Time, space, causation is not inherent in the nature of the universe. It's imposed by the tool of the mind, right? So time, space, very similar to that is past, present, and future, right? When you go deep into meditation and the mind is silent for just a split second, one of the first gems you touch down there is that sense of timelessness. You step outside of time and you realize quite possibly that time really is just the measurement of the rate of thinking, the rate of thoughts. The fewer thoughts, the less time. The more thoughts, the more time, right? So if you sit down with a restless mind to meditate, that 20 minutes of meditation is going to seem like 4 hours. You're going to be constantly opening your eye to peek at the clock. You're like, oh my God, I've only been here 90 seconds? Holy cow. And you sit there to suffer again. But you get in there and you touch that good meditation. You have some communion with your beloved for a moment, and you open your eyes. You've been there for 2 hours, and you're like, oh my God, I just sat down, right? Because there is no time when there is no thought. Time is imposed by thought. And so we don't get the time, space, causation. We don't get past, present, and future. And we don't get subject, object, verb. Subject, object, verb. You see, the mind imposes subject, object, verb onto the reality when the reality is a singularity, a one without a second. And so this is what causes our confusion. This is what causes our lack of understanding. And so it's the unique thing about spiritual life, and this is a big clue for us, where spiritual life is not like school. It's not go get a book, put your object of study in front of you, apply your senses to it, tear it apart, get them all in the boxes up there, and all of your little relationships imagined and drawn and settled. That is not the knowledge that we're listening to. And Ramakrishna says that's not knowledge at all. That's he says that this knowledge, is already finished. It's already complete within you, that all scientific breakthroughs have been a discovery of something that has always been known. That's why they call it that aha moment or that epiphany. I had an epiphany. Who was the guy that was in the bathtub and cried out in an epiphany, right? It's just because these things are uncovered. Vivekananda says that education is not adding information to the mind. It's uncovering, it's removing the ignorance from the mind so that that which is known can become manifest, can come to the surface when the mind is no longer distracted with its own activity, right? With its own self-love, which is egoism. All right, so here it does not begin because it always is. It's the I am, right? It is the present. This present moment is God. It is the divinity. All right, it does not begin. It only reveals itself as beginningless and endless, right? And Vivekananda points out in this universe, the way that it does that, how does the infinite express in the finite? Circles, right? That's why everything goes in circles. That's why planets circle the sun. That's why solar systems circle the galaxy center. That's why neutrons and atoms are all little circular arrangements, because the circle is the only way to represent infinity in the finite. A circle has no beginning and no end. And so in this universe, all those things where God felt that the need to express that infinity run in circles everywhere. All right, so it only reveals itself as beginningless and endless, all pervading. And this is the one that really makes me understand that the nature of this reality is a dream, right? Because only in a dream is the dreamer all pervading, right? In your dream, you look at the whole world, but there's no world there. That's you. That's your own mind stuff. And so you pervade your own dream, even though you identify with a particular perspective, just like you do in the waking world. In the dream, it's very clear to you that you are the dream. Those mountains are you. That water is you. All those people in there are you. And so by really studying the dream, you understand Advaita. It teaches you how this is possible. And I really feel that's why Mother gave us dreaming, is because every night we get to see how the impossible is possible. And what is the impossibility that's possible? That all of this is one without a second. That all of this, in my dream at night, all of this is mind. And that mind has become everything. It's become wood and metal and water and air and fire and people and houses and mountains. It's become everything. And I can walk through it, but there is no walking through it. There's no place to walk through. And yet you're able to walk through it, and you're able to see it and experience it. So it's all pervading. So God, in this room that you're in, the divinity, whatever, God is an infinite word to me. So I don't, most of you know that when I talk about God, it's not, it's not from the painting of Michelangelo, with the finger, not an old guy up there. If that is for you, that's totally fine. That works, if you want to go that direction. But God for me is a principle, a divine principle that resonates, and manifests like when you pluck a guitar string, the body of the guitar resonates that sound and makes it full and heard. So the body, that divine principle, that the heart of the body resonates and brings action to the body in the presence of the divine. And so we become, right? So this it's all pervading, which means it's in everything. God is so intimate with you. And I mean, you can't touch or hear anything right now that isn't your beloved in some way. And if you think of your beloved while touching something, you will know the right way. You will see it. That's why we're always trying to keep the thought of this divinity in our mind, because that's our honing, that's our North Star, as it were, right? Keeps us honing, so that when we look at a person, knowing that that is the beloved in that person, we know how to treat that person. We know how to respond to that person, right? When we look past the personality, past the history, past all of the particulars, we find that spark of divinity in all of us, that spark of love that makes us valuable by default, that makes us beautiful by default. And it's not a matter of becoming beautiful. It's a matter of allowing yourself to be beautiful. It's not a matter of becoming kind, becoming loving. It's a matter of allowing yourself to be loving and to be kind, right? Because those are the impetus of the divine principle within you before it goes tuning through your ego, right? So it's all pervading, it's all powerful, which ultimately leaves us all with no excuses, right? We can't blame weakness. We can't blame weakness for ourselves. We are not victims in this world. We are not victims. Take back your power. Understand that this moment of your life is the sum total of your desires. And if you don't like it, change your desires. Change your desires. You're free. Walk out that door and do something different today than what you did yesterday. Otherwise, you're just making the same mistakes over and over and over again. Because we are all powerful. Unify that voice in your mind, and there is no limit to the possibilities, right? Unify that voice in your mind. Remember, there's only one person in there. Don't let your attachments argue with you. They're just your attachments. Detach and silence them and be all powerful. That is your nature. That is what you are, right? It's the immovable prime mover, which means the dream is happening within it. So it's witness to every aspect of the dream, but it is unchanged by the dream, right? The dream is simply an expression of itself. The dream does not change the self in there. So it's the immovable prime mover. It's timelessly changeless, right? So it's in that constant state of perfection. And dreaming doesn't change it. Dreaming is like your 98.6 degree body heat. It's just what happens when God is present. It's just what happens when your body is alive. It emulates at 98.6 degrees for whatever reason, or 96.8, 98.6. Anyway, whatever body heat we have, it emanates as an expression of life. And so this whole universe, it's not that it's doing anything or has a purpose in anything. It's a manifestation. It's what is when God is, when the divine is, when that divine principle of love is knocked out of balance by egoism, then the whole world dances. Everything vibrates and changes and adjusts, right? I like to think about, I don't know that this is a truth, but I like to think of it in this way. See, thou art that. You are that divine principle, right? Infinite, all-powerful, all-knowing in your reality. And you wake up one morning and you say, today I think I'm going to be a 60-year-old Swami. They'll say Swami C, and I'm going to live in Colorado, and that's going to be me. And now the whole universe panics. The whole universe is like, oh my God, the king has woken up and he thinks he's a pauper today. Okay. All right, everybody, to your stations. Change everything, right? The whole universe has to be rearranged, reconstructed, realigned to be your personal universe where you're allowed to be this body in the very center of everything and become the victim of everything, because now you have no power. You're under the charge of the gunas. You have a body that's not going to last, that's aging, that needs a constant maintenance. And you've chosen a life around that body, which needs a constant maintenance. So now you're constantly busy, right? Welcome to our ignorance. But the moment that you let go and you say, you know what? I'm not any of these things. I'm absolutely free. I'm ever pure, ever loved, the very source of reality. Then everybody goes, oh, finally. And everybody can let go of the universe, and it can come back to that pure potential of infinity once again. And you have realized your divine nature. All right. Yes. Okay. So striving to is a form of restlessness. So what does one have to do? He says, through yoga, you have accumulated knowledge and experience. This cannot be denied. But of what use is it all to you? Yoga means union, joining. What have you reunited? What have you joined? Rejoined, So the whole point of it gets funny at this level, actually. It stops making sense at this level because religion isn't about religion. And really, religion is, there's no need for the word. Live your life with awareness, because the goal of religion is for you to just end up being what you've always been. That's the whole point. We're not trying to do anything incredible. We're trying to be the incredible that we've always been. We're trying to allow it by undoing this hypnosis that makes us think that we're limited and that we're small and that we're helpless and we're powerless, and that that all of the selfish notions that the body mind arises in the pursuit of their own well-being are not the goal and end all of our life, and they are not the point of our life. They should facilitate our freedom. They should facilitate our seeing. They should facilitate our loving and our service. They're not there for our indulgence, for our distraction and our play. They are there to indulge our emanation, to indulge our expression of a beautiful principle, of an unconditioned love within the heart, of a beautiful wisdom, infinite and deep, that arises spontaneously in the moment when watered by love and being, that it arises from within us. This is living, not serving the body, not looking for pleasure in its many whatevers, right? The body's there to facilitate your expression. You need nothing else. You're full. You're infinite. You're lovely. You're beautiful and kind. You're full of heart. You're full of compassion. But you've trapped it in a bottle and put a lid on it and given it a name. And then you go to that bottle and you pray to it every day. Please, please let me be loving. Please let me have a peaceful mind. Please show me how to silence my restlessness. Please don't let me keep doing this, that, or the other, right? We enslave ourselves. We lock it up in a bottle. We put it on a shrine and we get on our knees and pray to it, praying to ourself, to let go of our attachments, right? It's like praying like this: oh God, may I see again. Oh please, oh Lord, help me see again. Oh my God, thank you. And God's like, all right. All right, I'll take credit. Why not? So through yoga, you've accumulated knowledge and experience, but for what? Is that the point? That's why I'm always concerned. People, when they first jump into Hinduism, that's not a criticism. It's just a tendency sometimes. We start going in there becoming spiritual biologists or spiritual chemists. We start studying all these different layers that are going on in there, and how are these all held together, and what's all of this, that, and the other. And we know all the right words, and we know how many petals are on the right lotuses and what color they are, and what to do and what sounds will excite them and what sounds will calm them and what positions are He's like, great. What have you reunited with? What have you found union with? Are you loving? Are you unselfish? Those are the only measures of spiritual life. Are you loving and are you unselfish? To that degree, you know yourself. To the degree that you're selfish or unloving, to that degree, you still think you're something else. You haven't come to know what you are. So he says, well, I'm trying to rejoin the personality back to the real self. Interesting. Who is this I? That's separate from both his personality and the real self that's trying to do the joining. That's a very interesting arrangement of mind there. I don't know if he's aware of it or not, but let's see. The personality, Maharaj says, Vyakti, is but a product of imagination, right? Absolutely. Just a product of imagination. The self, the Vyakta, is the victim of this imagination. It's the one caught in the dream. It's the one that bought the ticket to the movie. So it's caught watching the movie. It is the taking yourself to be what you are not that binds you, right? That's where you get stuck. You think you're the body. Well, how does that bind you? Well, the body's got all kinds of needs, and now you think those are your needs. And since you think those body's needs are your needs, now, boy, you've got a task. You're going to have to pay rent because you're going to have to find a place to park that body, right? And oh my God, that body needs gas. I got to go get some gas. I got to buy food. Oh my God, it eats a lot. It eats a ton. So now I'm paying for food all the time. I'm paying it. And now it wants to go on vacation. Good Lord, it wants to go lay on the beach now. Oh Lord, why can't it just choose the backyard? Why do we have to go to a beach? right? And so now you have to go, you have to go get another job so you can afford your vacation. And you're bound just by one simple problem. You believe that the body is you and that its desires are yours. And so you cannot say no. You cannot control them. The body says, I want fried chicken. You had better get it here quick, because my friend, the mind, is going to get really nasty if you don't do what we need you to do, right? Because not only are you subject to this body and its needs, the mind, which is even worse with its moods and its cattiness and its jealousies and its pettiness, its constant insecurity. And now you think that's you. So now you use words like insecure to define yourself. You use words like trauma to express your history. You tie yourself to all of these things that have nothing to do with you. And what's the answer? Be here now, right? That whole book. That's all you have to do. Be in this room. There's no mother here traumatizing you. So if you pay attention to your mind, you'll know what the trauma caused, and you'll be able to look through it. And in time that will calm. But no, be in the moment. Don't bring all the voices of your past into the moment with you. They don't belong there. They don't exist here. They are your imagination. And you're carrying on themes that aren't even yours anymore. They're just historical. And you've identified with them. So you said, those are my stories, right? And that's what the ego is. Ego is just a story. It's a story about the purpose of your life, the story about what you need to do and how you need to get there, the story of what your talents are and what the things you need to keep hidden are, right? That's the ego. And it's only there running your life as long as you're holding those two live wires of body-mind. If you're not enjoying that electrocution, let go. Take a chance. The ego, of course, will tell you what a stupid thing that is. Well, who's going to feed you if I don't? Right? Oh, you think God is going to take care of you? Oh, well, sure. We know how that goes, right? No, you don't know how that goes, because it's true. It does work, right? The universe, when you let go of the egoistic mind, what do you find? You find that your mind is in harmony with the universal mind. And the universal mind is that which is feeding the birds, feeding the fish, taking care of the deer, trying to protect them from us. Right? That's what egoism has done to the world, to our world. Right? Egoism puts us in that plate of destruction because we think out of balance. We serve a local of body mind, and we don't serve the self, the whole, the betterment of everything. So this is why it's so important. It is the taking yourself to be what you are not that binds you. The person cannot be said to exist on its own rights, right? You're a principle that's expressing. You don't have an existence without the beloved. If that self disappears, you disappear, right? But this is now, let's just back up just a sentence just to remind you. When I say the beloved or God, again, I'm not talking about a separate entity necessarily. I'm talking about a divine principle, right? A divine principle. And that divine principle is what? It's existence, it's knowledge, wisdom, and bliss, love, right? It's those three things. But it's those three things in noun form. So this is how we know that God always exists. One, you exist. God is existence. God doesn't exist. God is existence itself, right? And so God loans you his existence or her existence or that existence, and now you exist. God is not loving. God is love itself, right? You are the expression of that. You are the God's verb of that noun, love. So as long as you are able to love or feel love, you can know that God is present, that the beloved is present, and that wisdom, that intelligence. As long as you're able to learn, as long as you're able to grow from your mistakes, you can know that the grace of God is with you, right? You can know that the love of God, that the presence is with you, right? You are the expression of that divinity that is also you, right? You in noun form, you when you realize your perfection, when you realize the harmony, when you realize the oneness, you are that. So the person cannot be said to exist on its own right because it's borrowing its existence, love, and wisdom from the universe, as it were. It is the self that believes there is a person and is conscious of being it. Beyond the self lies the unmanifested, the causeless cause of everything. Even to talk of reuniting the person with the self is not right, because there is no person, only a mental picture given a false reality by conviction. Nothing was divided. There was nothing to unite, right? There was nothing to do. It was just a matter of letting go of all the wrong thinking about what you are. That's the only thing that was necessary. Of course, that's deceitfully easily said, but that's really all that has to be done. And how do we do that? By coming to the moment and observing it and doing and following an inspiration, not a calculation. Don't start creating the world in your head and determining a path forward to get your desires. That's what we're always doing, right? Our attachments are the past, our desires are the future, and all of us are bouncing back and forth between our attachments and our desires. And what are we jumping over? The I am, the being, the present. So come into the present, leave your desires aside, leave all of the memories aside, leave all of that aside. Let the moment define itself to you. And you do what? You manifest from that nature. You create something beautiful out of what the moment gives you, regardless of what it gives you. You apply Satchitananda and it becomes beautiful. You add love to the most mundane thing, it will become beautiful, right? Look what can happen to a flower. You know, I was tripping out the other day because I was walking down Roosevelt Avenue right here in front of my house, and I passed this tulip. Like it was up in the spring actually, but I passed this tulip that was so vibrant. I mean, the color was so bright that it looked like it wasn't part of the reality that it was in. It looked like it was sitting on top of reality, and I was looking at it. And I was sitting there and I was just thinking about that. I was talking to Mother in my head. I was like, wow. I said, how did you do that with mud and water and sunlight? How did you do that? You know, if I took the dirt that this plant is absorbing in its roots, and I took the water that you've watered it with, and I put them together, how am I going to get that color? What did you do to get that color from dirt and water and sunshine? Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. These things that we walk by. Why am I saying this? Why am I caught up in about that? I have no idea. But this sense of separation, this sense of personhood, this attachment that we have to body mind that allows us to manage, we have to understand that we're before that. You know, that first of all, in the morning, like I've mentioned, and I really recommend this because now it's been about 3 weeks and it's changing my existence in this world, I have to say, of getting up in the morning and just sitting there and realizing I'm in a dream, that the rules are the same right now, that I'm in a dream, but this is the dream of the universe, the dream of the beloved, right? And that God has identified with me in the dream and given me a point of reference, but that God has equally become everything else in this dream, just like a normal dream. But this time it's God and not the ego me, right? And then I sit there and I realize, okay, the air that I'm breathing in is not air. It's mind substance. It's consciousness that can take any form, right? The consciousness that has become that dresser over there and that door over there and this cup of coffee right here. They are all of divine consciousness, in the same way that in my own dream at night, I can create a coffee cup just like this one out of consciousness, right? And you won't be able to tell them apart because both cups are made out of consciousness. Even though you can break it, it'll look like porcelain, and you can keep looking at it and make it smaller. It's still going to behave all the rules of porcelain all the way down, but it was never porcelain. It was the same cup of your dream, made of mind stuff, made of dream stuff, made of that ultimate reality, divinity, whatever it is, that one substance which becomes everything, just like your dream, just like your mind at night creates mountains out of mind stuff, suns out of dreams, right? It can show you the whole world, but nothing is there but mind stuff, consciousness. Illuminated by what? There's no sun in your head, right? You can imagine the sun and it gives off light. What is that light that the sun in your head gives off? Why? That's the light of consciousness. That's what's lighting your dream world. That's what's lighting your waking world. Even though you blame this one on a sun, that same sun is also in your head, right? Ad infinitum, I go back to that same description, right? Because that sun hits your eye, that light doesn't go into your head. Your brain has never seen that light. So it's created a symbol for that light. And that symbol is made of mind stuff. And what does it shine? It shines the light of consciousness. And that same light of consciousness is lighting this world, because your mind, even your waking mind, has created a model of what it assumes is the external world within its own self, by gathering the vibrations that have encoded through the ear, the smells that have encoded through the nose, the light that is encoded through the eyes. And it takes all that data. It's never seen the thing itself. It's never experienced. It's never had a direct experience of the world itself. Everything has been interpreted through the senses. And the mind has created a universe that you live in. So you live in a mind, not in a world. And that mind has these qualities that we just read about here, right? It does not begin. It reveals itself beginningless and endless. It's all pervading, all powerful, immovable prime mover, timelessly changeless, right? This is the true nature of self. The person cannot be said to exist in its own right, because as soon as you take away the dreamer, the whole dream snaps out. It is the self that believes there's a person, right? So it's you that believes that there is a particular and is conscious of being that person, right? You gather up your memories and your experiences to define how you're supposed to act, and we call that a personality. But Vivekananda says that personality, this little self that we love so very much, he says, you know what it is? It's just a bundle of restrictions and limitations. That's all you are. That self that you love so much, that's particular, is just a bundle of restrictions and limitations. I'm this and I'm not that. I like this and I don't like that. I want this, I don't want that. And you've collected all those and you've slapped your name on it, and you try and get along with everybody else who's just out there being a bundle of restrictions and limitations, right? Even to talk of reuniting the person with the self is not right, because there is no person, only a mental picture given a false reality by conviction, right? You've been doing this every day for however many years you've been alive, and you wonder why the meditation's so difficult, right? You give 1 hour of spiritual practice to your day, and then you give 16 hours to delusion. And so it's a very difficult thing to overcome. That's why it's time to get serious. The disease is chronic. There's no better time like now. All right. 9:54. We go a couple more. Questioner. So yoga helps in the search for and the finding of the self. I know it's coming. Maharaj, you can find what you have lost, but you cannot find what you have not lost, right? That self has never left you. You've just stopped being aware of it, right? It's never left you. You've just stopped being aware of it. And that is why discernment is our main homework assignment, to go inside. And what do we discern? If it changes, it's not real. If it's unchanging, it's real. So your first assignment is to find that within you that is unchanging. Right. So the questioner says, well, had I never lost anything, I would have been enlightened. But I'm not. I'm searching. Is not my very search a proof of my having lost something? Maharaj, it only shows that you believe you have lost. But who believes it? And what is believed to be lost? Have you lost a person like yourself? What is the self that you're in search of? What exactly do you expect to find? Right. Wonderful questions, obvious questions. So you're not yourself and you've lost it. How do you know when you find it? What does it look like? Right? Ask all the questions. Say you're looking around your yard for yourself, right? Someone wants to come up and help you. They're just going to ask you some questions. Oh, where were you when you lost it? Oh, God. Oh, I, I don't know. Well, how big is it? Hmm. Oh, I don't know. Well, uh, where did you have it last? Buddy, you're not going to find that thing. You're not going to find that thing, right? Because your assumption is wrong. You've lost nothing, right? You just have this belief that you've entertained so long that you've created a myriad of stories around it to support its reality. You have identified the world and called it like you see it to support that reality, right? And now you're stuck, but you haven't lost anything. You just have to let go of all of this kerfluffle that you've gathered around yourself. You have to thin this ego out a little bit so that not everything is determined by body mind. You have to get in here and start letting love inform your action. You have to get in here and start letting wisdom inform your future instead of your desires, instead of your longings for comforts and zings, physical zings of any kind. Let that go. Stop using your body for taking. And remember that it was given to you for giving, right? In this world, if you had meant to take anything from this world, you'd be able to take it with you. We'd all be walking out of here with big carts. Funerals would be like these huge parades of used storage boxes being carried along to the grave, because boy, how do you get to take it all with you now, right? But the fact of the matter is you can't even take the body out of here with you, right? We're going to put that in a cardboard box and burn it, so take that. So learn the lesson. You didn't come here to get, you came here to give. You came here to express yourself, to express love, and to find out all the myriad of ways that it looks, all the billions of ways it can manifest, all the creativity that it can bring up and bloom with. That love, Vivekananda says, is the only motivating force in this entire universe. He says that gravity is just a form of love, attraction of one thing to another, everything striving for the unity again. This is our nature. This is Advaita. Live the dream knowing it's a dream, that it's a oneness, it's a unity, it's a perfection. See it from that perspective and enjoy life without getting caught in it. That's all for today. So, if anybody has any questions or concerns,